Hello everybody. Okay, in my last video I expressed how I was unprepared for the overt nature of the Christian elements in the new Superman movie, Man of Steel. I thank you all very much for your feedback. It was interesting to learn about your diverse perceptions. Many of you agreed, some disagreed. Some of you said things like, dude, of course Superman is Christian allegory. And some of you went the opposite, saying, dude, you're reading way too much into it. You're like a conspiracy theorist. To the people who say I'm reading way too much into it, I'm not. The matter is academic. There's no debate. You got to learn to look deeper into art. And in this movie, it wasn't even deep. It was right there on the surface. You don't have to take my word for it either. You can look to the filmmakers themselves, who have made no bones about it. They've been public about this and about who they targeted, even pre-screening it for churches and pastors, inviting them to use the film in church, none of which I knew when I went to see it or when I made my video, so I was spot on. And to those of you who thought I was unaware of Superman's connection to Jesus, no, I was aware of it. And to prove I was aware of it, let me show you a part of the unedited version of my video, which I cut for brevity's sake.
But then the thing that I was unprepared for were the religious overtones. In this movie, they really club you over the head with it. Christian iconography in the movie, and of course, that's the case with Superman. Inherently, in a way, but in this movie, they really club you over the head with it.
So let me be clear. My problem wasn't with the Jesus connection as much as the clumsy way they handled it. Like pinning evolution on the evil characters and then pitting the messianic Man of Steel, unstoppable and good, against this evil. The movie panders to creationists and vilifies evolution. And some of you pointed out that Superman is a Jewish creation, right down to the Kryptonian names. I was not aware of that, but if that's true, it doesn't surprise me that Christianity would adopt it because Superman is popular. One of the reasons Christianity found success is because it assimilated and incorporated that which was popular and essential to other cultures, even explicitly forbidding pagan elements like those found in Christmas. But sometimes emulation can backfire in hilarious ways.
If you want to reach those kids on the street, then you gotta do a rap to a hip-hop beat. So I gave my sermon an urban kick. My rhymes are fly, my beats are sick. My crew is big and it keeps getting bigger. That's 'cause Jesus Christ is my nigga. Take it away, Mary Sue.
Jesus Christ is my nigga. He's the son of the original G.
Look at this DVD I took a picture of in Kmart. The Adventures of Chris Fable is a Christian movie inspired by the Pilgrim's Progress, which is a Christian allegory. I had to stop and take a picture because this DVD case made me laugh out loud because it clearly goes too far. In one corner of Christianity, you have Jesus Camp, condemning Harry Potter because the Bible says that witches and wizards should be put to death. And in the other corner of Christianity, they're trying to ride Harry Potter's coattails because it's a successful franchise and Christianity has historically been a vampire of pop culture. And I highly recommend watching Angry Video Game Nerds Bible Games here on YouTube for an example of truly blatant, despicable yet hilarious Christian thievery, not mere emulation, but literal theft. Let me clarify though, I'm okay with Christian elements in art. I fully expect it. People are going to express what inspires them, and they should. Look, I spent money on Narnia, for crying out loud. My main criticism is in how it's handled. And let's face it, Superman is not a good allegory for Jesus Christ. They try to present him that way, but it's not accurate. Superman saves the whole world, unconditionally. He doesn't require you to accept him first. He doesn't fly around figuring out who's Muslim or atheist or Hindu before deciding to save them. For Superman to be a more accurate allegory, he'd choose only a certain portion of the population to save, namely the minority who dig him, the believers in supermanity, not supermanity, supermanity, and then leave everyone else to suffer and die, or even actively punish everyone else, not to bring peace but a sword. And let me just add the disclaimer that I know there are universalists, Christians who believe that everyone will go to heaven. But universalists are often marginalized and mocked by Christians who want Christianity to remain an exclusive club. Can't let just any old riffraff in, don't you know? By golly, next it'll be the tax collectors and prostitutes who want in. Many of you know that I'm an artist. I really appreciate art in its many forms, including the more contemporary mediums like film and even video games. As an art major in college, I've studied thousands of paintings. This is my favorite painting. It's called View of Cotopaxi, and I was very fortunate to see it in person at the Art Institute in Chicago about 13 or 14 years ago. I love this painting, not necessarily because of what you see, but because of what you don't see. The time and place in that painting begs to be explored beyond its margins, and knowing that you can't is kind of agonizing. I want to see what's down that path in the foreground. I want to be the guy in that boat. I want to trek to the horizon in this painting and see what's over that rise. Since I can't, I let my imagination fill in those places beyond the borders of this work. And that's my opinion about what makes a work of art great. It's when it provokes your imagination, when you so desperately want there to be more that you take the initiative and create it for yourself. Kind of like fan art. If you perhaps have a more classical education, then you're probably surprised that this is my favorite painting. For those of you who don't, allow me to enlighten you with a reading of the collection label for this painting. It says, Frederick Edwin Church produced at least 10 finished paintings of the Ecuadorian volcano Cotopaxi. Painted just before Church's second visit to Latin America, View of Cotopaxi is a symbolically layered landscape that incorporates the scientific, religious, and political themes that preoccupied the artist. Church ascribed to a religious view of the world that looked to nature and science as evidence of God's role as creator. The lush rainforest of Latin America was likened to the Garden of Eden, here linked to creation and paradise, and the volcano, because of its creative and destructive force, was understood in terms of divine power. Obviously, I strongly disagree with the artist's ideology, yet his religious inspiration produced my favorite painting of all time. Many Christians have criticized me for depicting God as a white, bearded, toga-wearing man in the sky. Several of them have even told me that God has never been depicted that way by Christians. But that cartoon of mine was modeled after the most famous depiction of God, which can be seen on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo himself. Now back to Man of Steel. I expressed that I enjoyed the movie, but that I was disappointed in it. That is not a contradiction. I was expecting more than to just merely enjoy it. The initial previews made it look like something that it's not. Sometimes various elements of art are difficult to juxtapose, but you can have action entwined with meaning. That's the best kind. But if there's an action movie where movement fills the screen and you can't really tell what's going on and you don't really care because there's no emotional investment in the characters, so there's nothing at stake, and then all you have left to rely on is aesthetics. And sadly, that's the direction a lot of movies go. They just want to look cool. And sometimes that's enough to entertain me. I admit it, it's a guilty pleasure at times. I like spectacles. But compare special effects extravaganzas to scenes like the climax and denouement of Children of Men. In that final shootout in Children of Men, it was not visually confusing. You could see where the characters were placed in relation to each other and who was shooting at whom. And you were emotionally invested in those main characters who were immensely vulnerable and defenseless in this extremely precarious situation. It felt like the lives of the people you cared about were on the line, and you desperately wanted them to survive, but the bullets were flying and people were dropping. It was visceral, and you weren't sure if they were going to make it because the movie had no qualms about taking the lives of likable main characters. That's the kind of unsafe feeling that was completely absent in Man of Steel and other movies like it. And that's one of the reasons I was disappointed, because I was expecting to be emotionally invested. But I wasn't. The same holds true for being intellectually invested. Consider this. Man of Steel was a superhero movie with great actors, dramatic dialogue, examinations of societies, grandiose music, and stunning visuals. But Chronicle was a superhero movie that had none of that. Yet it achieved insights that Man of Steel could not. Chronicle just put a camera in front of 3 teenagers as they encountered some unknown object underground that gave them Superman-like powers. And that's it. That's the movie. The movie examines human nature when empowered. Not the simple tired good versus evil dichotomy, because the characters in Chronicle weren't pure good or pure evil. Like real people, they had both good and evil within them, and they reacted to their newfound power over others in various realistic ways. That's far more intriguing to me than how many buildings Superman can throw Zod through. And in Chronicle, you never find out what that strange object was that gave them their superpowers. They tried to go back to it, but it's buried and cordoned off by the authorities. And that's the last you hear of it. So it provokes your imagination. Remember how I said that good art provokes your imagination. Man of Steel, like many other modern movies, don't do that. They hold your hand and explain everything for you, leaving nothing for your brain to do. I was disappointed because I thought Man of Steel was going to be the best of both worlds. But it took the action cop-out. Action has its place. It's fine, whatever. But it's not going to be anything great without something more than just action and really bad Christian allegory. It's not just Man of Steel either. I felt compelled to make this critique because this is the direction I see a lot of modern entertainment going. To the directors, producers, actors, musicians, artists, and designers, I say this: underestimating our desire to be engaged and insulting our intelligence could backfire in ways you never dreamed. Think about it.